Okay, Trustee Grumbles, we are live.
All right, welcome everyone to the Tuesday, January 19th, 2021 regular meeting for Orange Township. I call this meeting to order. Ms. Kraft, if you could please call roll.
Sure. Mr. Grumbles?
Here.
Ms. Tranto?
Here.
Mr. Rivers?
Here.
Okay, we're going to recess and enter the hearing for the Route 23 overlay Cheswick Village application.
Trustee Grumbles, if I may, I'd like to read the legal notice.
Sure, go ahead.
Notice is hereby given that the Orange Township Board of Trustees will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, January 19th, 2021 at 6 p.m. to consider the following application. Route 23 Corridor Overlay District application number RCOD-20-02 of TBM Investments LTD, requesting a final development plan on Owenfield Drive having parcel numbers 318-324-11007-004 and 318-324-11007-005. And this development includes townhomes and units to be known as Cheswick Village. And this was published on time or before Friday, January 8th. Also for Trustee Grumbles, I do have I'd like to go over my staff report briefly, if permitted.
Yes, please. And I know we have some residents likely that want to share concerns, et cetera. They emailed us. I've read through those and trust the other board members have too. I've also looked at some comments from the applicant. So following this, I'm assuming that you'll take those questions for any residents that have them.
Yes. Yeah. And then
Okay.
well, I'd like to present first and maybe give the applicant to continue on with the presentation just briefly, and then we could open it up to public comment from there.
That sounds great. I'll just have a few words before we do that. Okay.
Perfect.
All right. Take it away, Michelle. Thank you.
Thanks. So as discussed, this area consists of 2 parcels totaling 11.486 plus or minus acres. The subject area is currently zoned planned commercial office district. A pre-application meeting was held on Tuesday, November 10th to discuss this proposal. As we all know, this development or this proposal is on the south side of Home Depot. Surrounding it is, of course, Home Depot, Meijer, Steak and Shake, and then to the west is the Green Meadows subdivision. This is within the Route 23 Corridor Overlay District, and I want to just indicate that this specific area falls under mixed use area number 3 of the overlay. And there in each mixed use area, there are housing limitations and caps. This development falls under segment area 3, which permits a maximum of 350 units. This application is proposing 56 units at a density of 4.8 dwelling units per acre. As far as the development standards go, they do comply with the majority of them. They are submitting a divergence of the setback that the applicant can further discuss. Architectural standards are met, aside from the divergence request for the exposed foundation. Following that, the open space does comply. They will provide a central open space area and a playground area, and then there's sidewalks and paths all throughout the development. Parking complies, signage, they are seeking a couple divergences to that that the applicant can also dive into. And overall, as far as the amount of divergences, there are 8 divergences requested. Staff believed all of them were reasonable requests, as many of them are given the existing conditions on the site. And following that, we did hold a technical review meeting on Tuesday, December 29th. And those involved were the zoning staff, our consultant, our director of operations, the fire department, and regional planning commission. So we did provide a list of comments to the applicant, and after that, they did address all of our comments. Following that, we had the zoning commission work session, and the comments from the zoning commission members are stated within the staff report. We believe almost all of them were addressed, aside from the sightline diagram here, as we knew that was important to the residents to understand what their view would be from their homes to this development. At the time of this report, it wasn't addressed, but we did fix that, and that is in the updated submittal. And as we all know, there have been several community concerns, and we did ask the applicant to meet with a resident on site to discuss the landscaping screening. And I think the applicant can touch on that too, but I believe there was a resolution to that. So staff recommends approval of this development plan to the trustees. So I believe Todd Ferris is here and Tom Bell is here on behalf of the application. So before you all provide a brief presentation, if you can state your name and address for the record, that would be great.
Good evening. I'm Todd Ferris with Ferris Planning and Design, 243 North 5th Street, Columbus, Ohio, 43215. I am here tonight on behalf of the applicant, Tom Bell, who would be the builder and developer of this project. We obviously, Michelle went through the proposal. You guys have seen this, all the various parts of it. And I want to go through the divergences quickly so that you understand what all of those are and why we've asked for them. The first divergence that we asked for is the right-of-way setback. Your new code asks that the townhomes be a minimum or a maximum of 40 foot from the right-of-way. In this case, there's an already platted setback for this parcel that came along with the overall development, which is 50 feet. And we have to comply with that plat requirement. Otherwise, we'd have to go back and change that full plat and get every property owner in this subdivision to agree with that. So we're asking a waiver for a divergence from that. There's also an existing dry detention on the site. And that's our second divergence. That's located to the west. That detention basin is functioning currently, and we will be utilizing that in its current condition, other than the fact that we will be able to take the fencing from around it. So we're asking for a divergence on that dry detention basin as well. Item 3 was a screening between uses. The code requirement is that whenever we abut a commercial development with residential, that we provide screening between those two uses. At the very northwest corner of our site is where that existing mound and tree line is today. So our fencing basically stops at the edge of the parking lot that we're proposing on the north of the Home Depot parking lot. If you can, I don't know if Michelle's cursor goes over there, but that's where we're proposing that buffer end. Just due to the fact that going up that hill doesn't make much sense. It's already has trees on that are growing back into it. And again, it's very steep. Item 4, divergence, has to do with the privacy fence. Privacy fences between uses are allowed, but they're only allowed to be 5 feet tall. We're asking for a divergence to go to 6 feet tall between our use and the commercial uses to further screen those uses from the multifamily. Item 5, connectivity. There was some questions about that. Our curb cut into this site is off of this private drive that accesses Owen Field Drive from the east or from the west. Right now, we have located that curb cut point to be equally centered between the two curb cuts of Steak and Shake, which comes out to be 175 feet. If we move that back to the 200 feet as recommended by the code, we're getting so close to that curve down there that it was thought that was probably not very safe. So we've asked for a divergence to keep that in that location. Item 6, temporary signs. There's a limit. How many consecutive days that you can have the sign for and how many times it can be renewed. We have asked, just to simplify this, that it be allowed to be up for 1 year after the final occupancy permit is granted on the last unit, and that way it's gone forever. 7, wayfinding signs. There's a limit of 3 feet tall for the wayfinding signs. Our wayfinding signs are mounted on columns at the front entry off of that private drive, and those columns are 5 feet tall. So we're asking a divergence for those columns to be 5 feet tall to include those 2 wayfinding signs. Item 8, exposed foundations. This was one item that the developer discovered really in the last few days. There's 12 inches of exposed foundation around these buildings between the grade and then the siding. Typically what they have done is treat that foundation wall with dry lock. And dry lock is a paint applied system, which is a waterproofing system. Below grade, they use or not a cementitious, but an asphaltic type of process that obviously provides that waterproofing system, but you don't want to carry that up above grade because it looks very, very unsightly. So above that, they apply this dry lock system, which is actually applied at the factory. And then they install that block. He has talked with the manufacturer. They do not recommend using that on a texture type of block because it's got so many voids and so many irregularities that they can't guarantee that it will keep water out. So that we're asking that if we can do this, but we will also paint it to either be a complementary or consistent color with the siding so you won't notice it. And again, we're talking a 12-inch reveal. Your code allows us to have it if it was 6 inches, but we're at 12 inches on this, and we bring that forward to you guys to ask for that divergence as well. There was actually one other item I noticed in this, Michelle, and it had to do with the width of the lot. We needed to ask for a divergence to go with the multifamily width of the lot of being 100 feet versus the townhome definition, if I remember correctly. And maybe I'm not remembering correctly, but there was some confusion on that and how that was determined in the zoning code. So that's the 9th divergence, I believe.
Holly, can you help me on that? I thought we didn't need a divergence for that.
Oh, we don't? Okay, good.
Well, let me just, Todd, let me just confirm.
Yeah,
I think
I just-
once we,
go on.
this is Holly speaking. I think once we did to confirm that it was townhomes, that we did need that divergence because it was based upon the number of townhomes and the width of those townhomes, which made the lot size frontage requirement extremely wide. So we probably need to approve a divergence down to what the multifamily lot width would be. And then it would comply and make a lot of sense in this particular case.
And those are the divergences that we're requesting. Obviously, ask me questions. I went through those quickly. I think the one about the block, the exposed foundation was new. Wanted to explain why we're doing that. It really has to do with water penetration into this. This, unlike most multifamily units, has full basements, very conscious of water getting in and mold and things like that. And this has been a proven system that Tom Bell has used in the past to get this done. And again, if we can paint it to be the same color as the siding or a complementary color, don't think you'll notice that anyway. Plus, with all the landscaping, it's actually hidden behind it anyway. Any comments or questions?
Yeah, Todd, this is Trustee Grumbles. Just looking, I can't tell in the picture. I know some of the questions related to two of the buildings having line of sight into the residential to the west of the development. And I wanted to look, you just scrolled past one of the ones I wanted to see. I want to make sure we show that to residents who had a question or concern. So that's with the existing mound left in place. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. We're not proposing doing anything with that existing mound or existing buffering that's in that portion of the site. We're going to leave all that intact. Actually have made a commitment to go back and repair fencing. There's a couple locations that trees have fallen on it, knocked boards down. We're going to go back and repair those and make it in operable condition at all times as well.
Okay. And can you zoom in there, Michelle, if that's you navigating? I want to see what the distance is between the residential and, okay. So you're talking 270 feet roughly, 275, right?
Yeah, from house to house.
Okay. So almost 100 yards. All right. Thank you. That's the only questions I had. Michelle, I have a question for you. Has this property always been zoned for commercial office district?
As long as it's been a planned district, yes. So prior to that, it was farm residential.
But when did it become a planned? What kind of timeline are we?
Can I interrupt just for a second? I apologize, Mr. Grimes. There's someone on, it's a 980 number. I'm getting a lot of feedback and
Michelle,
distraction.
if you want to just mute everybody that's not talking?
I can do that. Yeah, I just muted that number.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Taranto. I'm still hearing it though,
Yeah,
so
I am too.
you can just mute everyone, Michelle, it would be great.
Okay. Okay. I think I got everybody aside from the trustees.
If you figure out who it was, we'll Zoom flog them. But okay, so what do you have an approximate, like what, 10 years, 20 years? How, I'm just trying to understand how long this has been available for development.
So it was part of the zoning when Home Depot went in. I'm trying to think of what year that was.
A long time ago.
It's been a while.
I noticed a comment in the resident feedback that stated they paid a premium for their lots because they had green space to the east of their homes. And I was curious with that, with the year the homes or that neighborhood was built and the zoning took place.
I think that to me, if you can hear me, Ben, it almost sounds like the developer took advantage because they don't know what zoning is going to take place on that piece of property that they didn't own. And that could have been in 5 years or 20 years or 50.
Correct.
So if they charged them a premium, that was unfair and an incorrect thing to do.
And that was my my assessment as well. It was a disservice to the residents by the builder in that situation because they were making promises that were outside of the scope of their
Right.
their control. So
And Trustee
just-
Grumbles, this was the zoning for commercial was approved in 1999.
okay, so it's been a while. All right, that's all I have. If the other board members have questions, and then we can transition
I
over.
just, the biggest thing, the feedback I'm getting is the privacy that the neighborhood to the west can't see or get lights. They even would like noise reduction. So I want it clarified that those needs have been met. Another issue that I'm always concerned about is we had a lot of the same things with Home Depot. The issue with Home Depot, though, is you have managers that come and go. So we get a hold of a good one who did the mowing, who maintained the fence, who took care of the area. And then you would get the next one in who would know nothing about it, wouldn't do any of that. I'd hear from the residents, and then we'd have to start all over again, getting the area maintained, the fence taken care of, the grass mowed. So I guess I would like some assurances that all of that is still going to take place. Who will be doing it? Who will be maintaining it? And then they also talk about, and they talk about the trees being trimmed after they get to a certain height. About them being on the mound. Does anyone else understand that, Ben? Do you?
Yeah, what they were saying is that as they get to a certain height, the branches and foliage won't cover line of sight. So they'll outgrow the the benefit of having an obstruction, if you will. When I read through the developer's feedback, and especially with the on-site walk that was done with the one specific resident, I had less concern with the site. And the reason I was asking about the distance is pertaining to the concerns expressed. When you're talking about 300 yards, from door to door, and that's an entire football field. I mean, that's a pretty significant distance for a residential, situation like this. And with all things considered, you've got a giant mound and trees and things that already exist to further benefit the both residents in this case, not just one side. But the developer was discussing planting specific types of trees that would further obstruct view as they grow, if memory serves. The bottom line was, it was evident that the developer was working with the residents and not looking to be a bad neighbor at all. That's the one thing I look for. If they're willing to sit down and compromise, and they're openly going and engaging with residents, and not, it's not a lip service type deal, then I see, current behavior as a best predictor of future behavior. And so I look at that and say, hey, they're looking to be a good neighbor. They're not buying and flipping, they're investing and retaining. One developer mentioned, when I asked question, that the last thing you want to do is build something and have your investment decline in value, right? So I always remind folks of that. They're looking to have appreciation and be a contributing factor here. I think that's also evident in their density. I want to point that out. When you look at the density per acre here, you're at a fraction, you're almost like single family residential at just over 2 units, and if memory serves, I think is what it was. So, this is a responsible, in my opinion here, very responsible. They're leaving a huge amount of green space between, both existing residential and their proposal. The only thing I could think that would have remedied that concern over line of sight is if they reorientated the whole development, which I know would be a significant cost at this point in the endeavor. But as it stands, I wouldn't have tremendous concern if I lived there. And I know there's a comment that the mound does not continue the whole length of the property. I just saw that. And I believe that's why there's 2 of the line of sight, if you will. I'm not sure what the existing condition is where the mound doesn't exist. But, if they want the mound to exist, maybe there's a way to discuss that as they excavate the foundations or something. Maybe they can make it look like a continuous type of structure if that's desired. But the bottom line is, you put some evergreens or something that's going to stay green all year. You let them grow, and you're 300 feet away from folks. And I think that will be sufficient. The lighting, I know one of the neighbors and the residents existing mentioned I believe it was a lumen or a Kelvin scale that was favorable based on his research. They're right there in that number. He gave a good thumbs up on that. So I just think overall, you're talking about 60 homes. They've got 3 roughly spaces per home. I mean, they're not cramming it in there. It's responsible, and we should be mindful of that.
Okay, we have a resident that commented the mound does not continue the whole length of the west side of the property.
Yeah, that's what I was bringing up. While they're excavating, can someone show on there where it starts and stops? Is that possible? Just so we have a visual here. Because that would make more sense on the tree concern where the branches die off and you have
Ms.
They
Shum,
thought the trees were sparse also, that's not like, they changed the drawing is feedback I'm getting. That it's not as many trees as they originally had planned. I'm not sure.
I thought
this-
they added trees.
Yeah, this is Todd Ferris. The existing mound stops about, I would say, midpoint of building, is that 5? No, that's 8. 8. That's about where the existing mound stops. And that's where it transitions into an existing wooded area. My guess is, and this is purely a guess, is that mound was stopped to preserve those woods that were in the backs of those people's yards at that point in time. Those are mature, huge trees, not all of them, but there's quite a few large mature trees that are back in there. And it also has an 8-foot high board-on-board wood fence. We continued that mound goes all the way to the back property line. All those existing trees would have to come out.
Yeah,
Uh,
okay.
Some of those are 24 to 36 inch caliper trees. So
Yeah,
we prefer to keep them. We prefer to keep
Right.
them.
I think they would too.
Yeah.
But there was a specific type of tree. I don't remember if it was like a
Oh,
Arbor.
the green giant arborvitae. Yes.
arborvitae. That's why I was gonna say that. I mean, that's as close to an organic fence as you can get. You see those all over the place. So I mean, if those are going to be planted in there, they grow really fast as well.
They do. They
And
do.
I think you'll they'll find that favorable. You just got to keep in mind they get extremely large, so you got to give them some space to grow.
They do stay skinny, which is good. But yeah, they do get tall. So. But we're planning on planting some down in that corner because there is a direct view line that's opened to the southwest, because that fence does stop short of the southern property line because there's an existing creek there that has a stormwater protection zone or stream corridor protection zone on it. So we can't extend the fence any farther by any requirements. What we have done and proposed to that owner is to bring it back towards us to the east to block those views and to pack in, which is probably the appropriate word, to put in a bunch of those green giant arborvitaes to help with that screening. Number one, day one with that 8-foot tall fence, and then long-term with taller evergreen vegetation down in that corner. And that also, their concern was that people would be cutting through there. There's a steep bank there that would not enable the people to go down that. They would have to climb down a steep bank then if they were to go down there, and that would be a good deterrent.
Okay, and I know I saw there were comments about repairing some disrepair, if you will. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's a few boards that have been knocked off. It's not horrible, but they need to be replaced and put back on, and we will deal with that.
And Todd, just to confirm that fence will be maintained by this developer, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I saw a commitment to fix that up and make sure it's aesthetically passable, or whatever you want to, the right word. It's not in a state of disrepair.
Correct. And it's in good condition to this day. It has a few trees that fell on it, so we got to deal with that. But
Right. And then with the addition of the evergreens, and a recent comment stating it's not too steep for use, referring to the culvert or what have you that exists. And there's, I guess from a cut through standpoint, where would people be cutting through to go?
it was just a concern of the homeowner that people might go down there. His backyard is nicely landscaped, and he just thought it might be inviting for them to go to it, so he didn't want that to happen. So we put that fence in, so they couldn't do it. They couldn't even see it. So.
Okay. Well, so that should be okay then. Yeah, I don't know. Other than that, I don't know that I have any questions. There was a note. So there's a comment that the evergreens that are spaced 25 feet on center need to be 15 to provide effective visual and noise. And I think that's what you agreed to, if I'm not mistaken. I thought that was.
On the new ones that we're putting in, we're more like, I know I can't remember the exact number, but it's, let's say it's around 10 feet. I think he's talking about the ones that are existing. That was part of the existing zoning requirements when Home Depot went in. Those trees are there today and they're 60 feet tall and they're close to touching. They're not touching yet, but they're going to keep on getting wider. Closer isn't always better. But I don't know what we can do about that because they're out there and mature right now.
Right.
We're maintaining those as they are. And as I told Mark, the next step is once the bottom branches start dying off and you can get views again, that's when you either underplant it with shrubs that get tall and tolerate dense shade. So there's more things that you can do instead of just cutting down and starting over again, because he wants to do that, right? Because then you're at ground zero. So that's where some of his comments, I think, are coming from, is I was just saying there's solutions in the future to make sure the screen evolves with everybody that lives here. So, if that makes sense.
Sure. And wanted to bring up another point. There was a concern the residents shared about inundating our schools and how there would be offset for this. And for a development with this lower unit count like this, and knowing what we actually got the numbers. I obtained the numbers for every development in the township, in the school district. It's multifamily, and the most substantial per unit contribution is actually right around the corner from my home. But needless to say, even if it was at one per unit, I would take a pretty big, make a big assumption here and state that it would come close to covering with commercial tax the lion's share of the draw on our school district. You compare this to single family, and there's really no comparison from a tax standpoint. Some of the other developments that we've looked at were hundreds of units, and they also had potential TIF financing associated with them, the tax increment financing, which would divert school district taxes into road development type projects and things of that nature. So you're taking from one pot and putting it to another. The taxpayer ends up in the end paying for something, right? This isn't the case here. So I think it's actually going to be a benefit from that standpoint. I know the school district sent Mr. Rafe to chime in on multifamily, and I would expect that these will be a benefit in that regard.
I was actually going to address that point from the letter from the residents. Both Mark Rafe and Julie Fiesel, the school board, this is something that they educated me on a few years ago. Apartments do not fill up our school system, our Old Tangy schools. They actually make money on the property taxes on apartments. They get more money, and they do not lose money per student in an apartment complex like they do single family homes. They actually can be a benefit as far as property taxes and what goes to the schools.
And Todd, is there anything you can speak to as far as traffic impact?
And that was you. Did you direct that to Todd? I didn't hear
Yes.
the first one. I'm
Yeah.
assuming you did. Without pulling out the traffic numbers, multifamily is a very low traffic generator. As far as comparing it to single family, I think it probably has half the trips as single family would, significantly less than a retail development. And given that this is 11 acres, typical density on retail is about 10,000 square feet an acre. That would be 110,000 square feet of commercial. You figure you park that at 4 per thousand, that's 440 parking spaces. You know, we're talking 56 units here. That typically with an apartment project, people have different hours, obviously, than if it's single family, because there's not as many kids. So the peak AM is much less, and so is the PM peak is much less, and that's people coming and going. So they usually see that it's about 50% or less than a comparable single family development. And I could pull those numbers out to give you some specific numbers. It's in our book. I just don't have them out right in front of me.
Yeah, no, it was a good overview.
Yeah.
This is Mike Shade. I apologize for a little bit of a tardiness in getting online, but I just got a new computer and the sound systems didn't work, so I had to pull up the old computer. Going back to the matter with regard to the financial, I agree with Trustee Toronto that that is the finding of most school districts now, that the concept that multifamily housing contributes unnecessarily. I think I spent a good portion of the day anticipating these kinds of questions, and I did a lot of research, and I also talked at length with the people from the Delaware County Auditor's Office. Assuming that this development, as it's currently placed, is valued at about $1,050,000, and that is significantly lower in tax dollars than would be generated once this project is complete. In fact, I went further. I went up and down the properties, spreading this development out over a similar area. And what I found was, with roadways and everything, that there was approximately 35 housing units. Those 35 housing units had an auditor's valuation, not an assessed valuation, a full auditor's valuation on average of $263,473 in the neighborhood to the west. And what's more, that if you took that by that 35 lots, that would be about $9,186,567. That generated on real tax dollars $220,426.50. On the $9 million for this project, with the assistance of the auditor staff, the calculation would be at $9,251,458. And if it went to 10 million, when you're building, you're not sure exactly where you're going to end up. It would be about $279,398. They want to caution everybody that those numbers, until they get in there and actually do the assessment or the valuation, they can't fix that dollar exactly. But this project will pay for itself, and it will carry its weight in the community, and it does hold a commercial valuation. So it's not going to impact the schools any more than most apartment complexes. And I think that was a point well made. And I think the superintendent, to his credit, is right on target with the concept that apartment complexes overload school districts.
So can you repeat the tax revenue that you're expecting to generate?
$251,458 at $9 million.
Okay, and that's commercial tax?
That is commercial tax.
So the numbers, I just pulled up the report, and they went through every single multifamily in anything not single family in the entire school district. And the highest complex was 0.7 on the very high end. The average is 0.15 to 0.18 for apartments. Condominiums is even a little bit lower. And so if you do the math on that, and you know, you're looking at 12 to 14 students, and then with the amount it takes to educate each one, you still come out net positive.
That would be correct. Right now, just for everyone's edification on this, this property generates annually $33,568 annually. And this property has been sitting there, well planned. And the hope, I think, was for everybody was that it was going to be developed a lot sooner. But now after 20 plus years, it's still sitting vacant. And I think this plan that the township has come up with it is a great concept. It's permitting the infill, and it's permitting a maximum development of land that is basically sitting fallow. It isn't generating students, I'll grant you that, but based on current dollars per student, you're only educating maybe 2 out of this versus an estimated value, total tax at $251,458 generates $201,165 to the school district out of that. The rest of the taxes go for other governmental services, the county, the township, any FAR levies and anything like that are a part of that, take out of that remaining pie. So out of that 51,000, all other governmental services are being provided for.
And for the trustees' record, Mike Shade is the legal counsel representing this application.
I apologize for not identifying.
I just wanted to make sure that.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thanks.
Michelle, I think that if we're breaking off of the board member concerns here, unless Trustee Taranto and Trustee Rivers have additional inquiries, we could ask if the members would like to speak.
Yes.
And we can unmute them, and if they do want to speak, try and keep comments concise under 3 minutes. I think what we've extended in the past, and that way we can hear out everyone's concerns. I'm sure that some of them will be overlapping, and that's fine. Everyone wants to make sure that their voice is heard. If we need to take more time, we can work through that. So I'll turn over to that now, Michelle.
Okay, great. I did just send a message on the Zoom chat. So if any members of the community would like to speak, if you want to just submit on the chat, I can make sure I unmute you. Otherwise, you should have permission to unmute yourself too. So we can open it from there. And Jeff, if you can hear me, if anybody messages on Zoom, if you can unmute them, that would be great, because I'll take notes during this time.
I did want to confirm one thing quickly while they're waiting to unmute. The green giant hedge is the one that was discussed with Mr. Ferris, if I'm not mistaken, arborvitae. That's what is being proposed by the developer as a mitigation. Is that correct, Mr. Ferris? You're still on mute.
Yeah, I got to find it. Never remembered. Yes, that's what we were talking about.
Okay. All right. Well, there's a couple residents now ready to go, so I'll go
Okay.
back on.
Jeff, let's start with Kobe or Cobby. I apologize if I said your name wrong.
No, no worries. It is Kobe. And
Thank you.
board members, trustees, thank you very much for this time. We appreciate you including us in this hearing. Just wanted to address, I know something that Mark actually touched on. So none of the community members are advocating for cutting down of trees on the mound. However, that mound, as has been mentioned, does not extend the full the full neighborhood, the property line on that side. South of the home that sits on 448, we do not have that mound. It is a fence that is roughly about 8 foot tall. However, we have a clear line of sight from our backyards well into the Steak and Shake that's there, well across the street over to the Arby's as well. I know that questions have been brought up regarding the lights disturbance. We can see those lights, especially this time of the year when the trees are not full. So even though you've mentioned that there's from door to door, there's, I think you said 275 feet from home to home. There visually we don't have anything that's giving us a barrier. So the concern of being able to see into their homes or others being able to see into our homes is certainly real. And so just any kind of reinforcements, I don't know if that fence can be taken up higher. And I may have missed this earlier. I did have to step away briefly, but I just wanted to make everyone aware that again, that mound does not extend the full way, and also it does stop short of some of the properties to the south. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, I think Mark Freeman would be next if you want to unmute him. Jeff? All right, Mark, the floor is yours if you'd like to say anything. Mark, can you hear us all right? We did unmute you. Hopefully your audio is working, but we have been reviewing your comments on the Zoom chat.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Yay, Mark Freeman, 478 Glenside. If you look at the lower picture of what's currently displayed on the screen, the mound that's shown there kind of grayed out doesn't actually exist for those houses that Kobe was talking about. And given the difference in elevations, that 8 foot tall fence doesn't really block anybody's view. The elevation is actually slightly higher for the proposed development than what's shown in this picture, from what I understand. So if you're in the house and you're looking out over that fence, you can see the full field as well as all the lights from across Owen Field. So that's the issue that they're hoping to have addressed by some additional plantings. Michelle, if you could go to Exhibit C4. There we go. So what Todd has added to this is the green giant arborvitae at the south end of the development. You can see the 9 trees there around the fence extension. So that solves my problem. I'm a happy guy, okay? But for my neighbors to the north, Kobe and the other folks, there really isn't any significant barrier visually or for noise a good 9 months of the year, 8 months of the year, because all the trees in that wooded area are deciduous. And without the leaves on them, they're practically invisible. So if you look at the green giant arborvitae that's pictured right up against the back of Building 7, what would help, what they've asked for, I saw the letter, is to continue a line of those arborvitae heading north from that one to form a visual and noise barrier between the development and those houses that don't have the mound. Because the fence just doesn't provide any kind of a significant barrier there. It's just too low. Even though it's 8 feet tall, it just doesn't help with the sight lines, even from the first floor windows, much less the second floor windows. Now, for the houses north of that do have the benefit of the mound and do have the benefit of those big spruce trees, they're in much better shape. But until those trees grow together, there's a lot of breaks in that barrier. Additionally, as the branches from those spruces naturally die off over time, as they get large enough, as they get old enough to grow together more, the base of those trees are going to start rising effectively above the level of the fence. So there's more of a barrier there that's needed. Doesn't have to be there today, but it has to get there eventually. And so continuing that line of arborvitae all the way up across to the northernmost building, building 9, to the northern edge of building 9, would resolve that whole issue. It'll take 15 years to get there, but it'll eventually get there. Whereas right now, what they have is a barrier that's going to actually get less effective over time, not more effective. So that's the point I think that they were making in that letter that I think has not been really clearly understood. And I will yield to anyone else that wants to speak.
All right, looks like we have a David that would like to speak.
Yeah, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, I appreciate that it came up already, but I'm at 440 Glenside Lane. And so the fence behind me is a grassy hill, not the wooded area. I'm the first home that has purely grass behind it, and then the pine trees, and then the fence. Then woods starts directly south of me. My main concern is the upkeep of the fence. It's been brought up, but I just want to reinforce the upkeep of the fence, which has fallen in disrepair. It's not, there are parts of it are not in good shape. There are missing boards. Secondly, there are 3 pine trees at least that have died off some time ago, and there's a big gap in pine trees that's directly north of me, the next property north of me, and the next 2 properties actually. And then the third thing is that Home Depot, one thing they have done well, if I'm to take it as they've been responsible for mowing the hill behind us and keeping that grassy area mowed. They've been very good with that. It's been consistent. It's never gotten out of shape. And we've been here since 2008. What assurances do we have that the fence will be repaired and kept up, and that those trees will be replanted or something better would be put in, and that the mowing continues?
This is Mark again. I just want to say that I was very impressed when I met with Todd. He seems to really know his stuff. He seems to genuinely care about creating something of quality here, and in trying to meet the needs of the folks here on Glenside. I think there's reason to believe that that both he and the property owner will continue to ensure that this area is maintained properly. But I think there's a lot of people that would just like to see something in writing about that. And again, to request that the additional trees the additional green giants be put in to provide more of a screen for both the houses that do have the mound and the houses that don't have the mound.
This is Todd Ferris. I don't know if you want me to address any of the stuff as it goes along or not, but I did discuss this maintenance responsibility issue with Mr. Bell earlier today. There is an agreement between him and Home Depot that shares the maintenance of that area. That will be kept in place. It just needs to be transferred from the current owner to Tom, because right now it's owned by, I can't remember the property owner's name, but they're in agreement right now, but Tom will be taking over that maintenance responsibility in conjunction with Home Depot. Obviously we met with Mark out there and we've talked with your development team, and have indicated that we will maintain and repair that fence. Somebody's trying to call me. So, you know, we can make that a condition of this. I don't think that's an issue. Obviously, again, we want this to be as nice for us as it is to you, because these people got to pay Tom every month and we want to make sure that they stay there. so you know, I don't think that that's a problem. We probably need to go on site and meet to find out what trees are missing that may have been there, the evergreens. I did notice that there were something missing, but it looked like there were some large trees that are there. So I didn't know if for some reason somebody wanted shade trees planted or not. If those trees are actually dead, I don't think that's a problem with going in and putting in new trees to fulfill that original zoning obligation as well. And in response to Mark, as far as continuing the screening farther north, obviously, I think we can look at that too. And I don't know if it's all on the east side of this detention pond, if it's on the west side of the detention pond. I don't know that yet. I'd like to be able to explore that with him and the residents as well. But I don't think that's out of the question to be talking about that either. So we definitely understand their concerns.
Yeah, the idea of extending the green giants would be right along the east side of where the chain link fence is currently.
Yeah, like north along 7, 8, and 9-ish. There.
Yeah, so it'd be kind of like right in their backyards. It would be nice if there was room to do it a little farther west than where that chain link fence is, but it slopes down so steeply. I'm not sure you can really plant anything there.
Yeah. Well, I think we can investigate that. Part of that investigation has to be with the County of Delaware and how much they'll allow us to encroach into that. So, but I think we can obviously come up with a solution that incorporates those.
Yeah, because there's room for that one by building 7, and if there's room for that one, there's room for the whole line of them.
Yeah, because it gets less tight as it goes north. So I don't disagree with you on that. So.
Yeah.
Todd, I think this is Tom. I want to add that we don't have a lot of space between the backs of the buildings 7 through 9 and where the retention basin starts. It was only 15 feet. And we got to be careful about that because planting those trees can eat into the backyard space of the residents in those future units.
Yeah, and you definitely don't want to do that. The nice thing about those green giants, excuse me, having a little vocal problem. The nice thing about those green giants is they just don't grow that wide. They're not going to get to be 15 feet in diameter. So there's room to plant them there without encroaching, without them hitting the fence that kind of fences in the back patio area for those units.
Yeah, no, I would agree.
Yeah, I don't think that the developer is proposing that they won't meet in the middle or reasonably accommodate the request. I think that I had the same concern with Mr. Bell in that as an owner of the same plants, I have them in my yard. I understand them real well and how fast they grow and all of that. But at the same time, I lived in this same unit when I was younger. I can say that now because I just turned 40, so I get to talk about when I was a kid now. So back when I was younger, I lived in a almost exact kind of footprint or floor plan that this building is. We had the same patio on the back, and so you know, the green space that is there. You know, if you're a parent or if you do have a child or you have anyone and you want to maintain eye contact, you can hide behind those things pretty efficiently and stuff like that. It's just got to be balanced is the point. And everything I've seen indicates they're willing to strike balance. So I'm not overly concerned with that. And the good news too is these arborvitaes are like $30 for a 7-foot, you know, arborvitae or something like. They're very reasonably priced for a retail standpoint. So, and they go on sale right next door every year. You can scoop them up for $20 or so. So I think logic should prevail in this case, and we can find a way to erect an arborvitae wall, as we call them here, if necessary. Are there any more questions from residents or the board?
One thing I saw in the letter was folks seemed to be very concerned about removing that chain link fence, and I haven't really heard anybody address the issue there as to.
They don't want it to be removed?
The residents on Glenside in the letter that they sent seemed to indicate that they would like that chain link fence to stay out of concern for the safety of the children that are going to be living in the development. Obviously, that's not really our problem. That's more a problem for the owner, but it is a concern that's been raised, and you know, I haven't heard anybody address that.
No, I think that the developer addressed that they would paint that fence, if I'm not mistaken. That's all they could do to it. Is that correct, Mr. Ferris?
Well, Todd, if you want to, that's changed a bit since zoning commission, Trustee Grumbles, but.
Yeah, again, Todd Ferris, we went back and spoke. We went higher up the food chain at the county engineers and talked to Mike Love. He says they do not require that fence and are fine with that being taken down. And that alleviated a divergence, which everybody seemed to be happy with. So we are anticipating that we would remove that at this point.
And a line of arborvitae would help provide a barrier there. But again, it's going to be years before the arborvitae grow together enough, assuming they do get planted behind 7, 8, and 9, to alleviate that concern, you know, of kids ending up in that detention basin when it's full of water. But like I said in an earlier communication, I mean, if the insurance company's okay with that, you know, that's really not my concern. But you know, I think it's a safety concern overall, and I think that should be looked at.
Okay, Michelle, I'll transition back to you then to wrap things up.
Okay, thank you. Just to reiterate, I did send another message on the Zoom chat. So if anyone would like to speak or share any concerns, questions, or comments that they may have, please let us know, as I believe it seems like we're wrapping up public comment fairly soon.
Another thing that I saw in the letter is concern, excuse me, concern about access to the stream area and extending that fence back toward Owenfield. There's the 80-foot extension that has been committed to, but the residents seem to be interested in having that go much further back. Any thoughts on that?
I think right now where we've got it stopping at Mark makes sense. When we walked out there, that got it to that real steep embankment. Um, um, that stream area is a wildlife protection zone. It's actually an amenity for this project too. And I don't want to separate the residents from it totally to screen it because you guys are all concerned that a kid's going to walk over there. I mean, hopefully it doesn't happen. It might, but you know, it's amenity to our side as well. And I think turning that corner there and dissuading anybody from going back there really, you know, will dissuade anybody from doing that. So.
The other thing to remember, and this came up at the zoning commission, is that at least 30 feet on each side of that stream is a non-disturbance. You can't construct anything. It has to be kept in its natural state. And that's under the Ohio EPA Old Tangy watershed standards. And I think, Todd, you told me that that's been defined as an ephemeral stream. Is that correct?
Yeah.
No, it is not. It's not ephemeral. It's at least an intermediate. It might be a part of it might be ephemeral at the eastern edge, but it's not an ephemeral stream at the west edge. It's
And if it's anything above ephemeral, then it's going to go to anywhere from 50 to 100 feet of non-disturbance, depending on the classification.
Right. And that's why we're staying away from it. So.
Yeah.
So you're saying that to extend that fence, you would have to get too close to the stream, because I see the way in the drawing that we're looking at, it kind of winds around a lot, and it gets fairly close to where those buildings are.
It does wind around quite a bit. And actually where we stopped it, the limits of that stream corridor protection zone starts going up north in that location. So that's why I stopped it at that location. Otherwise, we're starting to push it even farther north. But those patios and everything are set probably 5 to 10 feet outside of that zone, so they can construct them.
Yeah, and you probably don't want to have a fence right up against those fences.
No, I mean, they're woods. I mean, that's
Yeah.
like, we're in the middle of, I hate to say it, in the middle of a bunch of parking lots, and that's the one natural feature we've got. And I don't want to put a fence in front of it to hide it from the people here. So that wouldn't make much sense, I don't think.
Yeah. I mean, for myself, I grew up with woods and a stream in my backyard, and I survived to tell the tale.
We all did.
It was a nice feature. So, you know, I understand that being an amenity more than anything else.
Trustee Grumbles, I, from my understanding, I don't think there's anybody else that wants to speak at this time.
Okay.
Oh,
So-
I'm sorry, Trustee Grumbles. I just see a comment. Kobe, I think he wants to have one final comment if permitted. Jeff, if you can unmute him. Oh, Kobe, if you're there.
Yes, thank you. I do apologize. I meant to ask this earlier. This is regarding to the construction and to kind of timelines, periods of day where this may be taking place. I don't know if that's been considered yet or even talked about yet. The reason we ask is simply because us here in the neighborhood in the proposed area, we do hear a lot of the Home Depot traffic, the loading, unloading from Home Depot as well as Meijer. Currently, they've agreed to keep it between certain hours. However, even when the trucks are there idling, that is very, especially around this time of year, extremely noisy. We do have, this is a family, obviously neighborhood, so we do have a lot of young families, a lot of young children who, you know, that oftentimes keeps us up. So just wanted to ask that about if there's been any consideration given to that or any talk of that. Thank you.
Michelle, I don't know if that's something that's regulated by your code. A lot of times it is regulated by the zoning code. What hours are allowed. Typically our construction would be 7 to, 7.
We do have a noise resolution, and Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe construction can begin as early as 7 a.m.
Yeah. So we tend to stay within the zoning code because we know that is administered by them and will fall within those hours. I don't think they're unreasonable, and I think the sooner we get this done, the sooner everybody will like that.
So one question that came in, when's the groundbreaking ceremony on this? When will the construction start?
We have to get engineering approved first, so that'll take a few months. But I would think sometime this year. I don't know exactly if it's going to be in the first quarter or not. But Delaware County, they're fairly quick with their engineering permits, but I would still think it's going to be 4 to 6 months, even though it's a smaller project. For that.
And then you expect, what about a year of actual construction time?
Yeah.
All right, Trustee Grumbles, I think that's it.
Okay, if we close public comments, please, and then we'll transition to the board decision. Do you need to announce anything? This concludes the public comments, or?
No, and just for the record, we have been monitoring the YouTube feed as well, and there were no comments on there.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. So we'll end our public comments. If the board doesn't have any questions, Michelle, I have the resolution here.
Yes.
I just need some indication here as far as which one.
Sorry,
Would you like me to read it?
Well, I just want, before you would read off the resolution, I just want to indicate at the time this resolution was drafted, we did only have 8 divergences, and we, Holly, Maddie, and I added the 9th divergence for the minimum lot width as what was discussed in the beginning of this presentation.
And I'll add, you don't need to read the whole resolution.
Yes.
We have to read the entire resolution?
No, you do not.
Okay, thank you. I thought you said we did. I didn't plan to.
No,
so.
no.
Okay. Make the motion to approve Resolution 21-034, approval of a development plan per the RCOD section 20.04 of the Orange Township zoning resolution, Cheswick Village.
Second.
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Tranto, Ms. Tranto,
Well,
Take a break.
I don't know, she's on mute.
yeah, Trustee Triano, I just asked to unmute yourself if you're there.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my picture went away too. Yes, and as Ben has reiterated, I appreciate the developer willing to work with our residents and making it beneficial for everyone.
Mr. Rivers,
Yes.
All right.
And I did want to add just a comment. I think everything's been pretty well covered here tonight, so I don't want to be too redundant. But with the overlay, the focus has obviously been the desire to attract commercial development. However, there is a need for some housing along 23, the goal of it being reasonable and makes sense. I think this does make sense when you look at the density this is a very conservative number. It's a great product. And, I know it was said in the work session leading up to this, there's been several proposals over the years and some different things that were brought forward. Of what's been proposed, I think this is by far the best of anything that we've seen.
And I would agree with that, and some of the conversations we've had with proposed developments that maybe didn't go in this direction. You have to always remember too that there's no guarantee what might show up as an application next, and I think that the developer, the way they presented themselves both prior to and in this meeting, there should be there's a good feeling about there being a positive impact on the community. This is beneficial from a school standpoint, et cetera. So thank you, Mr. Bell and team for making it a pleasant experience for our team and being part of the district. And I will remind that we just formed, and I will remind too the residents that the overlay, to Trustee Rivers' point, we do have these zones that are limiting, what our unit count can be for that reason. We understand that there's a desire to develop above and beyond more homes and apartments and things like that. And in setting this up, we're sending and communicating out to the commercial community what we hope to, the balance we hope to strike. We're giving and we're getting in return is the goal, and partnering, and this overlay district isn't really about changing zoning from what it was prior to. It's about the process and making it feasible and efficient for developers to come in and work with us, whereas otherwise the process can be a bit complicated and time consuming. And we heard that from our developer tonight. What we did with the overlay district made it the right time and the right place for them, and it made sense. And so we're able to turn these applications and partner in a way that we weren't before, but ultimately insulating the township from having to deal with rezoning applications, et cetera, because we've made it very clear what we're looking to accomplish and the balance that we'd like to strike. And with this, we will see additional commercial come in that is not residential, I'm confident, and we'll see redevelopment work, because every one of those units in your homes will contribute to that, and we're removing barriers for those folks to come partner with us. So I appreciate the residents who took time to attend tonight. All of your comments were respectful and professional, and we sure appreciate the time you put into to working with us and coming in tonight to speak through your concerns. So thank you for that. With that, I'll exit the zoning hearing and return to our regular meeting.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any agenda changes?
Well, Trustee Grumbles, if I
Oh,
may,
sorry.
just
Go ahead.
for those that are still on our Zoom chat or the Zoom meeting, I did send a link on the Zoom chat for the YouTube link, as we would encourage you to, if you'd like to continue watching this meeting, to tune in on via YouTube. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Are there any agenda changes tonight?
I guess I could go under zoning, just a quick conversation that I had with Sheriff Martin regarding new applications. And the other question I had is, when we get down to the consent agenda, Court of Nemeth. I either must be missing something or I can't use a calculator, but I was unable to get to that $85,000 number. So maybe Lisa can show me that.
Trustee, I had a conversation with Val about this earlier today because I noticed it. I don't know if she's on the call here. So I did the exact same thing you did, and I asked her to follow up with Bill about it. So I don't know if either one of them are on the call and have additional information.
Val's here. She says it's in the backup. Yeah. Okay.
I read the
I did.
back.
Yeah, I did. There was a link sent out. Yeah, it was sent out. I saw it in the backups. I didn't know what it was. I didn't have the background that there was a concern.
It's a couple $1,000s difference on the one invoice from
I
what's.
see what you're talking about, the 82,000 versus the 85,000.
Well, I got 77,000 at one point, and then I got 50 something thousand.
It's basically we could use some of the PO. I mean, I can get into this when we get to the consent agenda. But it has to do with what's left, the invoices that we've got and what Corda is indicating they have left to spend. And I don't know if that's here in the backup. I'm looking for it right now.
I'm looking at the backup right now with Corda. There's
remaining. Yeah, it's the
current
highlighted
bill and the
amount.
remaining amount.
Yeah, it's the current bill plus the remaining that's highlighted on invoice number 111962. If you add the two highlighted under current build, that should be the 22. That should be 330.79. And if you add the two highlighted under remaining, that should be 62,000 and change. If you add those together, you get the 85,032.36. So we were asking for a PO for both what they're billing and what they're saying they're going to be remaining to bill. And we can change that amount to just what they're billing now if that's what the board would like to do, but we were just going off of what was invoiced. Do you see that in the backup, Debbie?
Yeah, it's the 3 pages.
Yeah, it's the very first page, the highlighted amounts.
Mm-hmm.
Add those together, those 4 items together, and you get the $85,032.36.
I see. Okay.
So, and like I said, if you don't want to approve the whole 85,000 and you just want to approve what we're being billed now, that would be $22,330.79.
Can we do that, Ben? I'd like to kind of keep a closer eye on this, and I want to see the invoices come through.
I'm fine with that. They haven't billed us yet, then we don't have to pay for it, right?
Yeah, we were just trying to encumber the funds because that's what they're saying they're going to be spending. So
Yeah, I understand that.
Yep. Then we can just change that. Michelle, if you look at the second to last item under consent agenda item B, where it says $85,032.36, that should be changed to $22,330.79. Right there, yep.
I'm sorry, can you say that number again?
Sure. 22,000, comma, 330.79. And then I do have just one other change. Michelle, if you arrow up, I just sent you the revised language.
Okay. Oh, like in an email?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, you're on the agenda. You're not on the actual template. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I have a lot going on. Let me see.
That's all right. It's just, it's a special trustees meeting. You can stay right where you're at. On 4A, it's not a regular trustee meeting. That was a special trustee meeting. Just semantics.
Okay.
I've got that if you want me to just read from from the email too. There's 22nd, not the 21st, right?
Exactly.
Okay, and then it was a special on the 22nd and a regular on the 21st.
You got it. And we already approved the 21st. That was done at the last meeting.
Right. So it'd be December 22nd, a special meeting, special board meeting held December 22nd. Yep, there you go. So from a consent agenda standpoint, I would start at, let's see here, 35.
Yes, it should be 35 and 36. And you only need one vote. You don't have to take a vote once.
Right. If someone's got the language, they can make the motion if you'd like, just for the sake of time I'm scrolling through. Make the motion to approve consent agenda resolutions 20-035 and 20-036.
Actually, timeout. That should be 21.
Or sorry, 21-035 and 21-036.
Did you say as amended?
As amended.
For Quarter Nemeth, second.
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Tranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
Okay. We're at 037-8 on the zoning. Ms. Bonnie, if you want to.
Yes, thank you. So I do have two things on the zoning. Well, I guess there's three items on the zoning report. I just want to give a brief update, if I may, for the zoning meetings before we go on the appointment. Let me see where it is. So this evening, we did hear the Route 23 application for Cheswick Village, and that was approved by the Board of Trustees this evening. Just for the board's record, we do not have a 23 hearing for February, so I will be sending out a cancellation for that, as we do not have any applications at this time. Following that, the Board of Zoning Appeals will be hearing 3 applications this Thursday, January 21st at 6 p.m. The first application is in regards to a swimming pool over in the Wilshire subdivision. The second is a conditional use for a model home for the new Grand Point at North Orange subdivision off of Corduroy Road. And then the last is a mix of variances and conditional uses for signage for the new Life Point church going on Graphics Way. And the last thing I have on my zoning report is for Tuesday, January 26th at 7 p.m. This will be the second hearing for the Slate Ridge single family amendment application. So if I can go to the next item, as discussed at the last trustee meeting, we have 2 positions open for the zoning commission. I did meet with one individual by the name of Sierra Harris, as she has sought interest to serve as a regular member on our zoning commission. We met last week and I thought we had a great conversation. She has a real estate background and she's recently moved to the township and just really wants to be involved in her community. And I think she would be a great asset to the team.
Sounds good.
And then her resume and cover letter were in the backup items.
Yes, I saw that.
Mr. Rivers, any concerns here?
No, excellent resume, and look forward to having her on the commission.
Make a motion to approve resolution 21-037, appoint Sierra Harris as a regular member of the Orange Township Zoning Commission.
Second.
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Tranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
Great. And thank you. Just to add to that, she will be filling an existing term as that was that needs to be completed. And then she would be qualified for 2 full terms if she wishes to continue on, or the board would like her to continue on as well. And then the last thing I wanted to add, now that we have all of our appointments for the zoning commission, at least for the regular members. We do have one more alternate position open. We will be holding a training since we have a lot of new members over the past year, hopefully in the next month or two with our new legal counsel. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. All right, we'll move on to maintenance and parks report. Mr. Cowan.
Real quick to add to zoning, I had, as safety liaison, I had spoken with Sheriff Martin recently, and he would like to also be part of new applications, just like we do with each of the departments and with fire. He would like to participate, to evaluate all new applications. And he suggested that Michelle reach out to Julie, his executive assistant, to maybe hash out the details or set up a meeting with Sheriff Martin on how that would work. So I think we would something that, I don't know if you need a resolution for something like that or just consensus.
I think just consensus would work.
We're just
he wants to be involved and see what's happening in Orange Township.
And Trustee Trano, if I may, when you say new applications, are you saying like any new permitting or zoning changes?
Like the one we just had is what I would imagine, right?
Correct.
Like new developments, right? So that way he can get a pulse on, if you think about it from his vantage point, it makes a lot of sense. And I think it's a good idea, you know, if he looks at something from his experience and perspective, and his team sees an unforeseen for us based on their profession, then we would value that feedback no different than when we ask our fire department to take the same, egress, ingress, and the hydrants, and they're looking at it from, hey, I got to get in there and fight fires and rescue or save lives. He's going to be looking at it from crime and crime prevention and bringing up that perspective. So I think that it's only going to add value to what we offer and ensuring our community feels good about what we're doing. So I'm all for it.
Trustee Grumbles, I'll let Miss Bonnie, if she can disagree with me on this, but it might be something I'd like to talk about with her and maybe Pete Griggs, the council, or one of our councils, because the difference is the fire code is promulgated by the state, and the fire chief and thus the fire department has an obligation to ensure compliance with the fire code. There's really no such similar standing for the sheriff or law enforcement. So I'm not opposed to it. I guess I'd want to be careful on how that input is received, because it would not be the same as the engineer given their advice as the engineer, or the fire department given their advice,
Yes.
or enforcing the fire code. So that I just wanted to flag that before we went too far down the road.
Well, sure. And I think what I heard from is it that he is asking for decision-making authority, or to approve or disapprove, but more so just to be informed
Exactly.
and engage in the process from the standpoint that he's responsible for the law enforcement aspect of the community. So I don't know that he's asking to sign off or have a say in anything as much as just to be aware of the changes so he can keep abreast on staffing and
maybe
how
offer some input if you see something that is a red flag.
Well, the trustee trying to, that's the part that concerns me, is the input. There's really no zoning avenue for the sheriff or law enforcement to comment on it. So that's why I was saying I'd like to, since I don't know how Michelle feels, I don't want to speak for her, but would like the opportunity to sort of vet this a little bit more and sort of understand what the request is. Because if it's like, hey, I just want to send the application and I want to occasionally liaison with Michelle and express my concerns or whatever, that's fine. But if it's, hey, I want to be at the meetings, participate, send a representative.
No, it's not that. I think we've been pretty clear that it's not that.
Well, and I can have a conversation with Jolie, and then if it's determined that they would like to have some feedback or input, then I'll coordinate with Andrew and we might talk to legal if there's something further. But if they want,
I agree with that.
If we want a simple update, I'm happy to provide that, no problem.
Yeah, I think it's more of just being consulted from an awareness standpoint than anything. I offered the dialogue on maybe there's some opportunity, um, not the sheriff himself, and so don't if you will, don't misinterpret what he asked for based on my own light bulb going off, if you will. So
I will coordinate with Andrew. Thank you.
um, okay, and then Michelle, can you double check too from a Zoom standpoint that if we have anyone on there that's not with the board?
Yes, and just as a reminder, if anybody else is remaining on Zoom, please tune in on our live YouTube channel, and I will remove those. I think there's just a few left on this, so I will go ahead and remove them. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I think with nothing further, I don't know if there was a clear way ahead, so let me try here. We'll allow Michelle to dive in here on expectations, and if there's any concerns that surface, she'll work with Mr. King to vet those through legal and get the best way ahead so that we find a middle ground.
That might even be a prosecutor question and not pay for a legal counsel.
I don't think it shouldn't be that complicated of a question. So unless he responds with, yeah, I want the gavel, and then we'll have,
I don't think so.
I'm joking. Okay. Well, Mr. Cowan, transitioning over to you for maintenance and parks, please, sir.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, Bill.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Maintenance report, over the 3-day Martin Luther King holiday weekend, although we didn't have much snow at all, our maintenance guys were out each morning salting and really weren't plowing, but salting. It was pretty icy, and there were accidents here in the township and other adjoining areas. Our superintendent was contacted by the sheriff's office and requested to come out. So we went out, had guys out each morning and taking care of the icy spots. Regarding the parks reports, with your backup materials, there are two pond reports. A report for the Orange Township Hall Pond and a report for the North Orange Park Ponds. I know we requested these some time ago. After some consultation, we received the reports. I'm just sharing them with you now. Within the report I'll start with the North Orange Park Ponds. I don't know if you have that available, or do you have copies of those? Oh, okay.
Yeah, did you read those, Bill? That
Yes.
was a little bit above my pay grade.
Oh, no, they're not that bad. Yeah. Now, when you get back to all the charts and numbers, yeah, that kind of goes over my head too. But let's see, page 8, please. Oh, which one are we on? Oh, you got the Orange Township Hall Pond. I'm sorry.
What one are you referring to, Bill?
You're okay there.
That's what you want.
Yeah, we'll start there. That's fine. The one you had up, Orange Township Hall Pond. Then page 7.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Michelle. This is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. Okay, page 7. So you can see there's 3 alternatives to making repairs to the pond at Township Hall. One is minimal dredging with a depth of 12 inches, which means they would go into the pond and remove 12 inches of silt, and pretty much that would be the end of that project. The next item, number 2, maximum dredging, 10 feet. That's what was recommended by the professional from Ohio State University. It means they would go in and actually dig down 10 feet below the water table to establish that depth that's needed so that algae would no longer grow in that pond. Item 3 is wetland construction. Essentially what that means, they would fill that pond in as it sits. Now, if you go to the next page, please, page 8. Perfect. Thank you, Michelle. You can see the different alternatives, 1, 2, and 3, and the advantages and disadvantages. Minimal dredging. The park area is used for disposable. That's a disadvantage. What that means, they would actually spread that material they remove from the pond, 12 inches of silt, out onto the lawn area and let it dry, and then we would seed it there, and it would become just part of the landscaping there. Just be more grass we would have, and you can see the disadvantage of that does not increase water depth for improved algae control because we're only removing a foot. But keep in mind, this pond is similar to the ponds at North Orange Park. It's taken many, many years to build up 12, 18 inches of silt on the bottom of a pond. And that's the problem we have at both ponds. They silted up. You're not getting you're getting sunlight all the way to the bottom of the water. And that's allowing the algae to grow and proliferate like it has for the last few years. So you want to get some depth in there, but take out the 12 inches of silt, you're removing a lot of that material that has algae and allows that growth to continue. And more than likely you get another 10, 15 years before you have another algae problem. You can see the differences there, the advantages, disadvantages of each scenario. I don't know if you have any specific questions. I know we talked a lot about maybe converting that pond to a wetland. And that would be done. You can see the alternative on page 7. It's estimated cost is around $162,000. You say it may not be as aesthetically as pleasing as a pond to visitors. How that would occur, we would take the dredge materials from North Orange Park and then fill in the pond at 1680 at Township Hall, if that's the option you choose there. Can you go to the next report, please, Michelle? The pond report for North Orange Park must be the next one up. Yep, and page 8 for that as well. There we go. Thank you very much. So here we are. These are the 2 ponds at North Orange Park. Both of these have been a problem with algae for the last 2 years, severely. We just can't control it any longer. They're both silted in and need some attention. And you can see they have 5 options and various different estimated cost points. Again, it's simply taking out 12 inches, disposing on site. Again, that would mean similar to Township Hall Pond, you take that material out from the bottom of the pond and spread it out on the lawn. It'll dry out naturally. They come back in, kind of grade it, seed it. You don't have to have those trucking costs to remove that material. The second item, the minor dredging, 12 inches. This is where they would dispose of the material to Township Hall site. They would, dig it from North Orange Park, truck it over to Township Hall, and fill in the pond at Township Hall. And you can see the other 3 other alternatives there. Again, on the very 2 pages, page 10. If you could scroll down there, Michelle. Page 10. Thank you very much. That's perfect. Again, you have the alternatives 1 through 5 for this site, the advantages and disadvantages. We've earmarked $500,000 to do both ponds. I don't know what the board would like to do. I'm looking, we could do option 1 at the Township Hall pond. It was around $130,400. That's just simply dredging out 12 inches of the silt material. And that would help, extend the life of that pond 10 to 15 years. And we could do the minor dredging the same at North Orange Park, 287. That's, we could do both locations one time, and both would be within that $500,000 that we've allocated. Keep in mind the costs that are shown are estimates. Procedurally, if the board makes a decision, not tonight or whenever, you may make that decision what alternative, or if you want to do anything to these ponds. We would have to enter into a contract with the S&ME engineering company to do the design. They would do the construction administration. And then like any other project, we would have to, they would develop the bid documents and bid the project out for us. The design and construction admin were part of the original request for qualifications that we developed when we advertised for this work for the report. So we've already taken care of that. We don't have to go through that process.
So if we do go out to bid, we could get, it could be less than that.
It could be.
I'm just surprised how high it is.
Oh, I know. Trucking costs and it's just expensive. If you're looking at moving 10 feet of material, the more expensive of the alternatives for either location, that's a lot of material. They've got calculations in here. I don't have that page earmarked, but they do call it out, the estimated quantities. Let's see, well here, to dredge out the North Pond and South Pond at North Orange Park, 10 feet, it's 5,681 cubic yards of material. That's about 30 yards in a dump truck. That's a lot of dump trucks full of material you're hauling down the road. So it's an expensive proposition, sure. And you do have the option of not doing anything. We can just go ahead and keep trying to beat the algae down like we have the last couple of years with the chemicals.
I didn't like that red algae that could poison.
Oh, I know. Well, we had that really bad this year at Township Hall again. Yeah.
Would just doing the 12 inches solve that issue?
It would certainly help. It may not eliminate all of it, but it would be a situation that we could control the algae for several years until the silt again builds back up.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So
I'm not really for spending $1 million on 2 ponds.
Yep. For I think, well, for Lake Doctors, I think we spent like $20,000 for all our ponds in the township for the weekly treatments, but it really didn't do any good at these ponds. Just you just can't stop it the way the ponds have. Like when Eugene was here from Ohio State, he said the ponds are basically dead. They've filled in to the point where fish have a hard time living there. Yeah, don't have good oxygen in the water. It's just not a good scenario. But
Well, I think the obvious question here is if you're going to have to make a big investment, we want to make sure that we don't end up right back in the same position in a relatively short period of time. I think that's the ultimate decision here that we have to make.
yeah. Yeah, and that's if I agree. You want to do the sensible thing, and don't want to have to be looking at this again in 8 or 10 years. But these are the reports. I certainly didn't expect or a decision this evening. Maybe you want to make one, but you have them. I'm accessible. If you have any questions I could help with, I'll be happy to do that. If you like me to have maybe someone from the engineering firm come talk to the board next meeting, I'll be happy to make those arrangements as well.
Do you mind if I ask Bill a question, Mr. Chair?
No, go ahead.
I think that was a yes. So Bill, as far as the deciding which of the alternatives to go, particularly with the township, whether to do it as a pond or a wetlands, would that be potentially something that would be considered as part of our parks master plan? What makes the most sense in a particular area, or would that be independent of this decision? I mean, would they be independent decisions, or would one potentially relate to the other, is what I'm asking.
I would think they'd be independent, but I don't know if you would want to have citizenry input into these decisions. And that, if that were the case, then I would say let's look at this as part of the master plan.
They might take a look at, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
They might take a look at the pond dynamic and make the determination for us that we cover it up. So either way at Township Hall, we only have, based on laws or whatever, there's really two options. We dredge it or create a wetland. Is that correct?
That's correct. And the varying depth of dredging. But yeah, dredging or wetland, that's pretty much it.
Okay. And then from an algae treatment standpoint, we don't have anyone qualified to treat algae on our staff at all. I mean, I know farmers do their own ponds and stuff like that, but
a couple of our workers, our superintendent, I know Mr. Kelly, Parks, I know they have some certifications in pesticides, and I'm not sure exactly what chemicals they are allowed to use and when they're allowed to use it, but we can certainly find that out.
I'd be interested.
Yeah, I may have to buy some, equipment or something, or figure out how to store those chemicals if we go that route, but I can certainly find out.
Yeah, I'd like to look at what the cost to internalize algae treatment would be, or if it's even an option, because if we're paying $20,000 a clip for them to come out and, going back to the concerns over the financials here, and the wholesale cost to us to do it ourselves is $5,000 or whatever. We'll be off to our great grandchildren by the time the cost benefit pays off here. It would make more sense to do that. So I'd just like to take a peek at that as another option too.
I'll find out from those two gentlemen what they can and can't use, and try to determine what kind of equipment, if we would have to buy additional equipment, that we may need to make that happen.
Yep.
I mean, I think
All right.
at some point we're going to have to do something, and it's obvious it's going to carry a pretty healthy price tag.
Yep.
So I think getting resident input would be very helpful.
Have you seen that
That's
new
definitely,
aqueducts over off Green Meadows? They do pond maintenance.
Yes.
Have you spoken to them yet?
Yes. So towards the end of, what year? Towards the end of last year, 2020 season, we played a little bit of phone tag, the business owner and myself, and he eventually did send me a quote. I told him we'd have to revisit it in the spring, and we would certainly consider that. So yeah, he's
from a treatment standpoint, right?
yes, same thing as what the lake doctors would do. Yes.
Okay, but they're local.
Yeah, they're local. Yeah, lake doctors is based out of Florida, but they do a lot of local work.
Right. Yeah. Aqueduct's right around the corner. So, okay.
Yeah.
But I think Trustee Rivers has a point too in the fact that no matter what path we go, other than a massive dredge or covering up in one case, it's not sustainable. It's a time, it's a recurring cost that we know we'll have. So if we can table it until we talk about the tabled item, the Parks Master Plan, and integrate that if we go forward with the Parks Master Plan and the outreach component. Having these estimates handy would be meaningful because it would be something that with focus groups or whatever they decide to do, they might be able to navigate through more effectively.
Sure. So we'll sit on that until we receive further direction.
I mean, is that okay with the Trustee Taranto, Trustee Rivers? Any concerns with that?
No, I think
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have for Parks this evening.
Move out of that, exit the bond report there. You want to shift down to public safety and Chief Rice.
Thank you. Just ask approval for the fire permit fees as submitted by Inspector Clark.
And the one thing I would add to this, trustee, is that I spoke to Bill Worley about the mechanics fees because I think they'd been, I'm drawing a blank on what they were. It was like $80, $90. And he said, the intent was to raise them because it's not really competitive. So you should notice in those fees that we raised the amount to 110, which is still a bargain for other townships. So we should still continue to get that work, but it would more accurately reflect not only the going rate, but his skill and I guess expertise.
Actually,
So that came up at other meetings, so I just wanted to highlight that particularly. Sorry, trustee.
Right. Yeah, I looked through this, had it opened, because the other thing that came up in the meeting that I haven't received a response on yet, and I think it was due to the transition with Chief Noble, but I was hoping to find out what we've recovered in the. Actually, I think I did talk with someone about it, but I don't recall an email or a board, the collective board looking at what the revenue stream we've enjoyed due to having an on-site, on-staff expert. I know there's been several communities that have sent work over and that, but I would just be interested in tracking that as a metric. Because I think it's important when we're talking about finances, that's a revenue generator. So I talked to Fiscal Officer Kraft a bit about metrics, and I would consider revenue generation and have a bucket that's, you know, tax revenue and other than tax revenue, if you will, as a worthwhile metric, because we've taken the position of using that role to accrue revenue. So I don't know if you have that number floating around, Chief Rice or
No,
Mr. King.
I did pull it, and I can go back and look it for you, maybe email it to you tomorrow if I can lay my hands back on it. I was, and I may be speaking out of turn, it seemed like it was about 30 grand, but I will tell you a couple of things we've started doing differently is Brenda was doing some of the invoicing and receiving of the money. So I talked to Fiscal Officer Kraft about that, and that I think will now run through the fiscal office. So we'll get a better sense of that. There'll be better control of that. The other piece, and part of the reason we're in the process of transitioning Bill Worley to the Dude Solution software, is when I sat down and talked with him at length, he was not tracking any of the work he did for Orange. So we're only getting, I mean, he estimated that, you know, somewhere a third to a quarter of his time is spent on fire apparatus and vehicles outside Orange and the things he does for Orange. So a big part of what I think we're missing is how much money he's actually saving us versus sending it to somewhere else and paying $150 an hour. So that is on, I think, on tap for this year. And Bill Cowan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's part of what we're going to start doing is tracking even what he does for Orange, which has not been the case.
That's right. And we don't anticipate that being ready to roll out until sometime in March. But Bill has made significant progress with the spreadsheets and working with dudes. So we're looking forward to getting
Good to hear. Yeah, but not all that data is helpful, you know, when we're talking projections and so forth. So from a fee, I didn't see a resolution for the fee schedule. Is that something that we've done?
I just emailed it to you. I just made one.
Thank you. I think we're on 38, correct?
Correct.
All right. I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 21-038, approving the fire permit fees for 2021.
Second.
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Taranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, if I could real quickly, I'd just like to recognize and thank Kurt Gilsnan, Josh Loney, and Kyle Williams. They assisted with delivering a baby here in Lewis Center at home with Delaware County EMS Medic 10. Everybody's healthy and did a wonderful job.
Thank you for that. I neglected to note that the discussion at the onset of the meeting was probably before we went live, but it's actually 3 houses down from my residence. So it was quite the talk of the neighborhood, and I know their home and very appreciative of the team and the group effort there. So job well done. And I know a couple folks shared that out on social media, and it was well received. So it's good to see that. And I know I sent you a note, but please again extend the gratitude from the community for that to the team.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for all your work, continued efforts, Chief. Appreciate it. All right. Ms. Kraft.
Okay, I'm going to keep this somewhat short. I'll start off real quick. As you may or may not know, the year-end process takes usually anywhere from 30 to 60 days. We have, we're probably about at least halfway through, if not a little bit more, kind of going through the end of year checklist that we have to do through UAN for the Auditor of State. And as part of that, I do have December reconciled, but it's like clicking the posting, the reconciliation button is like the very last thing that we do before we close out the books. So to that end, I do have everything is reconciled and balanced. I can go ahead and send out kind of an interim report, appropriation reports and things like that through year end. If people are interested, just know that those haven't been finalized as we wait on some then and now, so some kind of maybe some lagging invoices and things to come in. But everything is balanced to this point. So I will probably go ahead and send those reports out this week, but just know that they will be, they are not final. And then I'd just like to have a quick discussion on the ACH policy. I actually have something typed up that I'll send to the board tomorrow related to the ACH policy. Currently, as you all know, the only thing that we pay via ACH, if you call it ACH, are the direct pays that are associated with payroll. And we'd like to expand that. I have a vendor list of about 7 or 8 vendors I'd like to start with. In the short term, I'd like to just start with getting email approval. And then I'm guessing, and Mr. King can confirm this, sometime in the next 60 to 90 days, we should have our electronic signing software up. And at that point, we can just get electronic signature to kind of save a trip into the office and move things along a lot quicker as far as payment. We just had another issue with BP, and we mailed a check, and 3 weeks later it still wasn't posted yet. And so then the credit card, the gas cards weren't working, and we really need to kind of update our processes to the current century. So expect to see an email from me on that tomorrow, and then hopefully next meeting we can I can get approval from the board to move forward with that. And that's all I've got.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I know, if I'm not mistaken, I know this is the timing issue that's been a thorn for years now that came up with, I think, multiple fiscal officers. Is that correct?
It is correct. And Wes had done a lot of work on this, and it kind of stalled from what I can tell in July of 2019. So just kind of dusting it off and trying to bring it across the finish line at this point.
Okay. I wanted to make sure I was remembering. I know there were some, I'm never mind. I'm not even going to open that can of worms, but I just remember there were some concerns, but I felt like I reviewed all of that, and I felt like it was almost which foot do you shoot, right? I remember there being a fairly substantial lose-lose kind of predicament, and extending it. Most places are doing this to avoid the timing issues and the recording issues. So appreciate you bringing that back to the surface, and look forward to reading more.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's much needed and long overdue. So hopefully we can get it finalized soon.
Thanks.
Administrative report, Mr. King.
Thank you, trustee or chair. I just, if you don't mind, I'll just sort of riff off of what Fiscal Officer Kraft said. So one of the software that we purchased to help with long-term records rescanning and also document sharing and all that kind of stuff is OnBase, which is used by the county and the record center and whatnot. So in talking with them, they do have like a workflow approval process. So you'll, potentially get set up to get emails like, hey, go in there and approve stuff. So where the hangup has been, and I shared this with Fiscal Officer Kraft, and I just wanted the board to all be in the same spot, is Genoa made a similar request for zoning, specifically like wanting to do all of their zoning stuff through it. And then I think Liberty made a request. So the county wanted, and I think this is fair, wanted to sort of approach this in a uniform fashion, because they believe there's going to be an additional support cost involved, and additional server space is going to be need to store all these documents electronically. So that's just so the board knows that's sort of where the hang up is. It's not really fiscal officer craft or really anybody internally. It's just trying to get that settled down with hammered out with the county. So I think I'm going to talk with the IT director probably this week. We haven't set a definite time to see if we can get that unstuck. So just wanted everyone to be aware of that. So on the first item, the discussion and possible action on the supplemental leave for the firefighter. So since this first went to the board and I shared some of the information, we've had additional action from the BWC, from the claimant, and there wasn't an opportunity really to talk to our labor council on this. So I think for right now, if the board is comfortable, everyone had an opportunity to look at Article 32. So if you notice, there's a place where the board just has to authorize it. So I just sort of like, as a matter of consensus, for the board to authorize me to offer injury leave to the firefighter up to 60 days. And the reason I didn't put a resolution in front of you is because we're still trying to figure out how we do this, because it's a bit of a unusual situation. And the firefighter, when I spoke to him, I was like a half hour, 15 minutes before the meeting started, he recognized that this is also sort of an unusual situation. So I think there's a willingness from everyone to be a little bit flexible about this. So if the board's comfortable with that, I'd like that authority tonight, and then we can come back and memorialize it in a resolution if I get that direction from legal counsel. Does that make sense? I'm not trying to be super vague about it, but like, it's really just been a continually developing thing.
Were you able to pull the resolution of the ones I sent you in the past, how they were done and they had already been vetted and looked at by council?
Yeah. So, and the particular issue, there was two compounding issues in this situation. Is one, the claim actually was withdrawn with the intent to refile it. So that is a wrinkle that I was not expecting. And then in addition, the claimant is out of time, any leave time whatsoever. And that seemed to be a new wrinkle and something we were trying to figure out how to administer it in that light. So these were, and again, that's what I said, kind of makes it unique. It's, as I was talking to the attorney, it's kind of like a law school type fact pattern. All right, you start throwing in all these little variables and what comes out on the end and how you interpret the language in light of all these different variables. So that's sort of where it's at the moment. I let the person know that, the worst case scenario is there might be some need to pay back leave, but I indicated to that person we're still working on it to get it all straightened out.
So Andrew, is there a bunch of heartburn if we just threw out a resolution approving it? Would that be?
No, like I said, if you want to do that, that's fine. I just didn't want to lead the board down like this is all buttoned up and sealed up. And that's why I called the person right before the meeting and had which was good because I got an update on the status and that'll help me on my discussions tomorrow. So no, if the board wants to do that, that's fine.
I would imagine I would need to name the individual, or is that going to be a violation of medical stuff?
It looked like, and correct me if I'm wrong, Trustee Taranto, that it had been done in the past. So, that's part of the reason I left it vague. For the reason you identified is the reason I left it vague on the agenda. But yeah, that's.
We're not going into the why. It shouldn't be a HIPAA type situation. What's the official? I can get it off the email. I guess name is what I'm looking for. Is it would? I just I guess I'll ask the other board members if they have any objections to the requested extension before we get too far ahead.
I don't want to make sure it's done right.
I don't have the resolution that you did previously. And I know we can come back and do a resolution if memory serves and retroactively. I just didn't know if it did a generic. It was what, 60 days?
It was up to, should not be needed in this case. So we're talking like, I mean, if we were to do it, yes, I would ask that you authorize it up for 60 days because you don't know. But in this case, I think we're only talking about 2 weeks. So, I mean, the bottom line is, and this is what I expressed to the individual, is we're just trying to do it right and what's permitted and agreed to in the
So
contract.
it's up to 60 days of emergency leave. Is that what it's?
Injured leave.
Injured leave.
Correct. Injury leave. You got it.
What are we on? 21? I forgot already.
39.
39. Okay. Is there any objection to this from the board?
No.
Make a motion to approve resolution 21-039, approving up to 60 days of injured leave to firefighter Jason Ray.
Second.
I'm typing this. Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Tranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, thank you. I will reach out to him tomorrow. And so the other issue was, you see it there under the administrative report, was it's getting to be about newsletter time, and I know Trustee Grumbles as the new chair wanted to make sure we addressed that. So I talked to him a little bit about it, and I think Val engaged him a little bit on it as well. So I don't know if Trustee Grumbles has anything else that he wants
No,
to.
there's been some changes at Guide. And so we'll have to email transition from Guide to me, or from Trustee Rivers to myself, the contacts, and I'll have to reach out and start working because I know some folks we've worked with in the past have transitioned, or it's my understanding anyway. So once that happens, I'll start working and get the template and everything done. And my plan is to, and I've already solicited.
And you're going to do that personally, or are you going to have Val do that?
I'm going to reach out to them personally just to make an introduction since I've never worked with them.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant you're actually going to put it together. Like,
oh, no, I'm going to work on content and general stuff like that, just like the prior did, and a write up and things contribute to it. But I don't plan on micro, I guess, like doing the, I don't know what the right word is. I'm not going to do all of the stuff Amanda did and all that previously. No.
Okay.
I did talk to Val about that already. And I think there was a bit of a transition period for several reasons in the past year with the environment and we were in and so forth. And so now I think as we stabilize, we can come up with a path that works for not only the time I'm chair, but, makes sense. We can all agree to it. Then it would make sense to be sustainable. But yeah, I'm just going to try and introduce that and find out where they're at and what, what we have and options and get all the information together and just have an introductory call.
They're not capable because of downsizing. I'm sure that the printers that we use can design it.
I think it's already designed. I think it's a plug and play. But what I want to see is just the raw template, if you will, and understand how it's put together. Since this all happened before and tenure, and then when obviously last year with the transition, I think it was not something we were too aggressively focused on once at least two of the letters because we were trying to recover from COVID and get moving in the right direction. But my understanding is it's a template. So with that, looking at word count and getting a pulse on content. And then what I want to try and do is work collectively with the board, Fiscal Officer Kraft, and then our staff and our leadership team, understanding what the balance of each newsletter is, and then start to look at how we break that out and approach it so that it's cohesive each month or each quarter, and we have good continuity and that kind of thing. So if we come up with a brainstorm list of topics, and then chop those up, we should be able to generally get our newsletter outside of one or two components in that layout done, or at least aligned around. So every month there'll be this update that's spoken for, that's 100 words, it goes here. So the template should come together relatively easy. And then if we rotate a section, et cetera, like we kind of done, then, we all know whose turn it is, and it's more, there's less to wonder about, if you will, but it's
Well, typically the pool and the summer events are always information that's looked for. So obviously last year was much different. We'll see for 21. Hopefully 21 things can get back to normal here sooner rather than later. And the norm, as far as what we've done in the past returns.
This next newsletter actually would be the pool applications, all the information to sign up for your passes.
The good news is that Mr. Cowan's ahead of that, so we've got a good jump on it. I know he's got the bids out there, I believe, and contract work and all of that stuff that I remember we approved. So, and then I know we were looking at making improvements with the CARES. That's not going to matter from getting people to apply. It's more of how we facilitate post-application and that kind of thing. So,
And it doesn't look like legal is on board with us doing, using CARES dollars for those changes at the front of the pool. I can share more detail later, but been going back and forth with them over the last couple of days.
okay, well, we'll figure it out one way or another. I know operationally, going back through prior years, there was always an opportunity to make some improvements there if we had the time and capital. So we'll take pause. But the point being, Trustee Taranto and team that inquired, that's the goal with the newsletters, to just get a baseline, and then exactly what we just did, lay that out and then have a record of it, and then assign out, some projections as far as what stories are, content or whose turn and that kind of thing. And then, have an informed path forward. So we'll get through that. I've got, I'll get with Mr. King and get connected with Guide probably early next week, I would imagine. And then we'll go from there. But I did want to have that conversation just so we're all aligned on that's what I'm going to be working on. And then I'll follow up with the group and Mr. King once I get some answers.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Hey, gentlemen, can I just ask a question going back to that resolution we just drafted? What is the effective date of that new 60-day period?
Let's make it effective to last, if the board doesn't mind, and Scott can chime in if he thinks differently. The date of the last payday, I can't think of what that was.
Last pay was January 15th.
There you go.
Do I need to do resolution as amended?
Yeah, no, this is just in the detail underneath what you read.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well,
I think that's it. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, if you don't mind, I'll just segue real briefly into the old business. If there's nothing.
Nope, I was just going. That's fine. If you want to take that, go ahead.
So I don't want to jump in front of Mr. Cow and Bill, but so we, after the board's concern last time, Bill, Patty, and I sat down and sort of discussed some of the purchasing and the fiscal office and operations generally. And so I think, and I'll let Bill chime in here. I think after looking at his appropriations and what his proposed spend is, I think it was fair that with some of the changes in North Road Park that he could take some of the appropriation potentially from North Road Park and move that to this project. So I don't know, Bill, if you wanted to address anything else along those lines or whatever, but I just thought I'd start the discussion on that.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it, Andrew. But you're absolutely right. With possibly the changes at North Road Park with elimination of the splash pad, that's certainly going to free up some funds. So talking with Ms. Kraft earlier today, and of course, like Andrew said, with him and Patty last week, I feel really comfortable if we could, we had appropriated $2.5 million for the North Road project. I'd feel really comfortable if we could move $100,000 out of that line item and set it aside for the Parks Master Plan. I'd really like to do that. I think, well, I know we could, I just don't think it'd be an issue if we did that. The money's there, and I think this master plan is so important. So that's what I'd like to do. And just as a side note, I did have a resolution that was included with that. It didn't make it to the template, but there was a resolution that would authorize approving the master plan agreement, allowing Andrew to sign all documents that pertain to that. Yeah, but that's where we're at with the old business. We'd like to move forward with that master plan.
And I like the idea of incorporating the ponds as far as outreach and
I do too.
getting
Because
engagement from the residents.
Sizable expense, so if we keep them informed along the way, then there's no harm in that.
Nope.
Okay, let me dig here for that old resolution. It should be in the old template, so I'll pull that up real quick.
I cannot get on my Internet Explorer. I could send it to you. I'm having a lot of trouble with my internet here for some reason.
That's okay. I'll have it in just a second.
I found it.
There we go, Michelle.
Okay. All
Oh,
right.
you did? Wonderful.
All right. I have no concerns with this. I think you own your budget, Mr. Cowan, and if this turns out to be a bad decision, we will hold you accountable in the subsequent meeting. So
Fair enough. I'll take it.
all right. Any objections, Trustee Taranto or Trustee Rivers?
No.
Okay. Is it going to move again, or are we good? I'm
Sorry.
teasing.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm not going to read the whereas, etc. Is there a more concise? Is there the traditional like we've been doing? I'll just make it up here. Make a motion.
I'm sorry, Trustee. If you read resolution number, insert, and then and read the rest of the heading, approving the 10-year master plan, that's consistent.
Right, that'll be sufficient. Okay.
Yep.
Resolution
Make a motion
39.
We're on 40 now, right? Because Jason Ray was.
Oh, he
30.
was 39. You're right. Thank you.
Make a motion to approve resolution 21-040, approving a 10-year master plan agreement for Parks, Recreation, and Trails with Brandstetter Carroll Incorporated.
Second.
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Taranto, Ms. Taranto,
I'm sorry, that darn mute button. Yes.
Mr. Rivers,
Yes.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your patience on that and working through it with the team
Yep.
collectively. Mr. Cowan, I appreciate that. All right, I believe that concludes our meeting for this evening. If there's no further business at hand, hearing none, make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Mr. Rivers,
Yes.
Mr. Rumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Taranto.
Yes.
Have a great evening, everyone, and thank you for your patience tonight. We got a lot covered.
Good night, everyone.
Take
Night.
care. Bye-bye.